Okay. Well, thank you so much, Alan, for joining us and joining our Founder Spotlight. So could you tell us kind of briefly a little bit more about yourself and kind of your background?
Where do you want me to start? Because
As far
I
back
have a
as you
very
want.
I have a very long background because I've been in tech for almost 27 years already.
Mhm.
Uh, I started off my career as a lawyer because I graduated in law school. Uh, and and I started my career where I work at a law firm in England, and then subsequently I came back to Malaysia because I'm Malaysian.
Mhm.
I came back to Malaysia sometime in 1994, 93, 94, where I actually started working, started my own business and so forth. I mean, I want to cut the story short because the earlier part of my life, there's a lot of starting up something and not making it, and then went back to work, and then it was not until 1997 because of the advent of internet that I actually got into the tech space in 97. So 97 was the year that I actually started my first tech company, a tech company that I started with two other co-founders that we managed to pilot it all the way to almost a near IPO before we exited to our competitor. That was in 2004. 2004 was the year that I carried on with the business, and then I left in 2006 to China. So China was a journey that I took. I mean, I've been in and out of China since 2001, but it was not until 2006 that I decided that I want to position myself in China because I want to take advantage of the fact that China has one of the largest, if not at that time, the largest mobile users in the world in 2006. Because I
Mhm.
thought if I wanted to do something in mobile, then China seems to be the right space, right?
Mhm.
In 2006, I started my career in China, where I was actually working alongside my co-founder, my one other co-founder, where he started a mobile advertising company. So that was how I started my journey, and the next, let me see, the next 14 years in China was nothing but in the digital advertising space. So for a long time, I've been in the digital advertising space. I've gone from working for a local company that was eventually got bought out, acquired for $2 billion. Later part of my career, I went on to work at a company called Velti in 2008, where I was the head of Asia Pacific. It was a Nasdaq company. I ran that the Asia Pacific business from 2008 to 2011, and then subsequently I went and joined Google in 2011. There was a time I was also with Nokia, where Nokia at that prime was 40% market share in 2007, 2008. So 2011 I started my journey with Google that lasted up until 2013, where I was hired and also recruited by Omnicom. So I was leading the mobile advertising, the mobile innovation business at Omnicom for 5 years, and then my last career in China was from 2018, where I was again hunted down from Omnicom, and I was the managing director of the digital business for IPG Group in China up until 2011, and also sorry, up until 2018 to 2020, where just at the beginning of COVID, I decided that it's high time that I want to get back into startup again. So I went and got into the Web3 business. So all in the Web3 from 2020 onwards up until now. So I've done some token launches, and subsequently I've gone into investment and started our own very own we call it a Web 3.0 VC company. So that's where I am right now. So it's a long journey. Trying to cut that down to as little as short as possible. But it has been an interesting last 20 years in China. Right now, I'm more or less between China and Malaysia and Singapore, where I spend a lot more time in Southeast Asia, because I think there's a lot more growth in this area, especially in Southeast Asia. Uh, so all in Web3 investment and incubating startup, mainly Web3 companies. So that's what I do right now.
Oh yeah, thank you so much for that. I mean, it's long, but I mean, you held so many different positions at different sizes of companies, right? You've kind of seen everything from the big companies to small companies and everything in between. So it's really, really interesting, I think.
Yeah, I mean that puts me in a very good position to mentor others. I've been in mentorship on four accelerators.
Oh wow.
So I'm currently a mentor on four accelerators. One is the Orbit Network, used to be called China Accelerator, and then I'm also a mentor on Spark Labs. It's a Korean, started off as a Korean accelerator. Now it's probably global. It's got like chapter in the US, chapter in the Middle East, and so forth. So it's now a very global accelerator. I think my association with them almost 10 years already, and China Accelerator is almost 10 years as well. And then I'm also on the German Accelerator. It's a German initiative, and also the other one being Brink, BRINC. It's all again. It has got chapters around the globe. It's a global accelerator. So I've been an accelerator for several years, where I do a lot of mentorship because having gone through failures in life, and yeah, I mean, people talk a lot about success, but I tend to talk a lot more failures, because failures is like what really grew me
Mhm.
into whatever I am today, because it's the pain and losing money that
Yeah, the
what is
hardest
what's
lesson.
that I mean, the lesson of learning in life is that you need to lose something to learn something,
Mhm.
right? And without losing it, without tasting failure, you would not know what is success, and that makes you stronger, and at the same time learn that you don't commit to the same mistake again, right?
Yeah.
So again, I share a lot of that several times in my life, how to pick up myself again, how to pivot, how to have continue to be curious, and not knowing. Yeah, because the problem with a lot of time is that we tend to think that we know a lot, and
Mhm.
sometimes when the tendency of trying of thinking that you know a lot, in reality that you don't know that much, right? So the greatest wisdom in life is that not is knowing that you don't know enough, or you don't know at all. And that's
Yeah.
where that pushes you. That's why in my career I started as a lawyer. I got into advertising, traditional advertising. Then I got into voice over IP in early part of my tech career. So I learned things about a network. I learned things about technology in broadband, via satellite. And I've also got into mobile. I learned several emerging technology, from the very inception of e-commerce, Web 2, Web 1, and then all the way to right now AI, and also Web 3.0. So if you look at the evolution of what I've learned, is the fact that I do not know, that I tend to learn a lot more, right?
Mhm.
And the idea is that if I continue not knowing, then I will have the opportunity to learn more. It's when I think I know enough that I'm not learning.
Mm. Yeah, and kind of to that point of something new, like you said in 2020, you shifted to kind of blockchain, Web3. I mean, what's, most exciting to you in this space compared to like traditional tech, from like 10 years ago?
Right. So, I mean, I've always been a futurist myself, trying to look really beyond like 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, and what the world will look like. I always look at technology that way. I don't look at what's hot now, right? I
Mhm.
mean, what's hot now is probably what I would have thought of like maybe 5, 10 years ago already, right? Right now I tend to even look further, like 20 years, 30 years, what I mean, I won't n- sometimes I don't even care whether I will live that long, but the fact is that knowing, forecasting of what will happen in 10, 20 years from now helps you to start doing and learning things right now, right? Like if I've not looked at, let's say, Web 3 or even crypto 10 years ago, that I would not learn blockchain 10 years ago, right?
Mhm.
So, or right now, when I look at AI, right now it's getting more and more popular. But I started looking at AI and also recommendation engine like 10 years ago. So it's only true that forecast. I mean, and forecasting is that most of the time you're wrong.
Yep.
Most of the time, right? And but the idea is not to get as many rights as you can. Is to get some rights, right?
Mhm.
And the idea is that when you get some right, that's good enough. Right? That you have predicted, that there's more adoption in crypto, there's more adoption in BTC, there's more adoption in AI, there's more. I think that's good enough. And there are several that you that I forecasted, may not materialize, right? But the good thing is that because regardless, right, you learn, right? Even though it did not become a mainstream, but at least you learn, right?
Mhm. Yeah, and I saw that before you were, an advisor or managing partner in some PE firms, and now you're advisor and these accelerators. So, what advice, I guess, do you give startups, by wearing both those hats about how they should prepare their company, not only for growth, but also to excite, potential investors when they look at their company?
Well, I mean, it depends on what advisory. I mean, depends on what advice you need, right? Whether you're really at an early stage, like the pre-seed and all that, right? Whether are you at the growth stage, or whether you are at. I had the luxury of working for a big corporation where I was leading the business, right? So I will also tell you at different stage of your journey, right, requires different skill set, really. Right? You need a whole different skill set when you are really starting up, like founders, and not many people have that founders skill set and also mindset, right? And then when you run big corporation, right, where the skill sets are very different, right? You no longer, take as much risk as you used to,
Hmm.
right? Not because I'm not encouraging you to take risks, but you need to be more mindful because when you're running a big corporation, when you're driving a big ship with a lot more people, the communication skills are also very different because at that when you run a 50 people, a 200 people company, a 500 people company, 1,000 people, or even 5,000, right, it requires different skill set, right?
Hmm.
You can't communicate to everybody when you're running a 500 people, 200 people already, right?
Hmm.
Versus when you're running a 20, 30 people. Like everyone is a brother and sister to you when you're running a small company, and which is great, right? But when you get to a certain scale, you need to start thinking of, how do you organize yourself already, right? And some companies organize themselves very well, and some companies don't. Like if you look at traditional companies, right? That's why a lot of traditional companies are so well organized in a way that they become very, very restrictive.
Yep.
And that's why when you look at, long term wise, any organization that ends up being very big, they tend to fail at the end, and that's the cycle, right? And most companies, majority of companies, a very huge majorities are companies that are made not to last. Really, that's a reality,
I guess
right?
adapt with the
Only
changing times, you mean?
and very difficult. The
Yeah.
truth is very difficult because you tend to reach certain scale, right, where the founders are no longer there, right, and you're run by professionals, and professionals are then guided by their shareholders and so forth, and then they may be public companies, and then you're basically working for Wall Street, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And then when you reach that state, right, then you're always constantly being pressured by your shareholders, right? You're under obligation to them because they are your shareholders, and then at the same time knowing the fact that you need to be innovative, right? So the innovation meter, as you get bigger, you become less innovative,
Yep.
unfortunately, because innovation involve risk and money, and shareholder tends to say, why do we rock the boat, right? We're making money,
Just kind of
right? Let's not spend too
keep the
much money.
status
So
quo, I guess.
so the word organization, while it's a very common word used, right? It is the same organization and the way that being organized that fail you. Ultimately, if you think deeper, right? It's the way that you organize yourself that you end up failing. And most of the companies will eventually fail. Eventually.
Hmm.
So if you look at many, like I work at one of the best companies like Google, that really has done very well in organizing themselves. I mean, they're still very well organized, but of course they are a lot slower than what it was years back when they are way lot more innovative and take more risk, right? And
Mhm.
then if I compare that to, let's say, when I was working in Nokia, right, who was already a very successful company and very organized, very well. I mean, they are so well organized, things are so looking good, right? But because they are well organized for what they were doing, and so the organization, if you look at most organization, right, they are organized to achieve past success,
Mhm.
just like Coca-Cola, Nokia, just like emulating. Okay, I've done one great phone. Let's do another one. So if you look at Apple, Apple is one example, right? They've done very well from Steve Jobs, coming up with really good innovative product. But if you look beyond, right, I forecast. I mean, I've been forecasting, right, that Apple will not do very well, and they will eventually not do very well. When is the inflection point where they will start not doing well? It should be anytime soon already,
Hmm.
right? Because they're organized in a way that they're very lucky that they have got Steve Jobs who created a product that they can continue to milk that for several years to come.
Mhm.
But but after a period of time, right, you get a lot of companies, especially Chinese companies on the smartphone, right, that's getting better and better and better, right? And you will reach a point where your competitors' innovation will exceeds you, which I think is already happening, right? And if you look at Nokia at the time, at the prime, right, they were at the top, and
Yep.
there wasn't anybody to disrupt them, and they thought Samsung would disrupt them. They thought companies of their kind would disrupt them, but effectively what will happen is most of the time is someone else out of the industry will disrupt you.
Yeah, kind of
And when that
clone.
happened, right, I mean, you look at automakers is one example. The companies that disrupt all these traditional automakers was not like BMW disrupting Mercedes Benz. It's Tesla. It's the
Mhm.
Chinese companies, right?
Yep.
And if you look at what's happening right now, the auto industry, let's say in Japan right now, is facing that so-called, I always call it the Nokia moment. So they are facing their Kodak, the Nokia or Kodak moment already, right?
Mhm.
So eventually, I think the entire Japanese auto industry will fail, will fail.
It was too traditional, not changing and
I
just kind
mean,
of like the
it's
old model.
yeah,
Mhm.
and it's very difficult, especially Japanese companies, right? Even more difficult to change. If
Yep.
you look at the supply chain of the auto industry, right, it takes 7 years to 10 years to design a new model.
Mhm.
The Chinese companies can do it like within. I mean, if you look at BYD, it's one model every month,
It's really fast. Yeah.
right? I mean, when you get Chinese companies, right, who are who are a manufacturing powerhouse, right, they do one new car a month, and you're doing one new car, let's say, even if you do one new car a year, and that's most of the time in Japan and even in Europe, right? It's just a refinement, right? And they
Mhm.
are coming with a new model. And how do you compete with them?
Yep.
And your entire supply chain, right, is designed in such a way that you're organized that way. And to change that, you literally have to go and change your entire supply chain. And most of the supply chain, right, the entire supply chain is powered by someone else.
Yep. Hmm.
How do you change that supply chain, right? And if you look at the EV industry, everything is designed in-house and also manufactured in-house like Tesla. How do you compete with them?
Yep.
You can't, right? So the auto industry. So again, when I advise company, again, it all depends on at which level they are at in terms of whether they are at growth, right? What growth could mean, rapid acceleration and so forth, right? And then once you rapid grow very quickly, especially in the tech space, right, you need to grow very rapidly, gain as much visibility and also usability before you even talk about profitability,
Mm.
right?
Hmm.
It's not like the traditional business is always how much money do I make, right? It's how much of visibility and also how much of traction can you make, right, within a very short period of time. And
Hmm.
if you don't get there, right, within a very short period of time, you're not going to make it, right? Because
Hmm.
the acceleration in especially in tech space, the growth in any tech area, right, is almost a vertical line. If you cannot accelerate almost in a vertical line in tech, you're not going to make it,
Mm. Yep.
right? You look at ChatGPT, right? Grow from 0 to 100 million 5 days.
Yeah. Like ultra.
So,
Yeah. Rapid
so
growth.
right. If you look at television, it took 60 years to go from 0 to 50 million,
Hmm.
right? So now everything is almost at a vertical already. That means everyone is able to deliver a substantial user base, right, within a very short period of time. And if you cannot deliver that, right, then you're in trouble. Again,
Mm.
it all depends on what's your business, whether you are addressing B2C, B2B, and so forth, right? And these days, when you look at the AI business, right, it's all about not just technology, but also ability to be able to raise a lot of money.
Hmm.
Gone were the donkey days where you're raising 10, 20 million, 50 million, 100 million. Now they are raising by the billions, right? So, so how do you? So the AI industry in the US is really far ahead already, where companies are willing to plow in like billions into getting things done, right? And the rest of the world could just look and not do anything, because how many countries can even plow can even push $1 billion into AI research and development, right? And these are just startups
Hmm.
like Open AI. You got Claude, you got you got like Grok, XAI. So it's a very you need to be very deep pocket, right?
Mhm.
So again, I look at which stage are you at, and then advise you accordingly. I think the luxury that I have is, having worked in small companies all the way to big companies, I can see the much wider spectrum.
Mm. Yeah. I mean, like for the startups which are kind of just in the development stage, like the initial stages, or you're kind of getting them ready for growth stage, how do you set them up so they're scalable? Like for a company, if you just poured a couple $1 million in it, that they could do it within a year or two. Some of the companies are just not built to scale. So how would you advise them to get that, get ready for that?
Uh, Now, most of the companies, again, if you are at a really early growth stage where you are trying to go from, let's say, a couple of 100,000 or a couple of thousand to 100,000, really goes down to a couple of things. Number one, the focus on user experience is very critical. I'm specifically looking at technology business here. I'm not talking about any other things else. So, like, if I take some of my incubator companies, right, we focus a lot on user experience and user interface,
Mm.
right? If you cannot get it right at that at that point, don't even think of marketing and promoting it, or don't even try and share out. If the ease of use has to be something that you have to make sure that you have to put that in mind. And if you look at most of the apps around these days, right, the ease of use is like top number one. So user experience is everything, right? So if you're in that business, you have to make sure that the ease of use, right, the onboarding, will help you to accelerate your growth, right? So companies who really want to go really growth area, you need to have a very strong tech team, with user experience, to really drive that, right? Because you're no longer at the stage where you're trying to develop the tech, you're really at the acceleration where you're trying to onboard people. So onboarding people, your time to market, marketing and promoting, you need to really focus on the user. He is a user, right? If the user find, I mean, you're done with the tech. The next layer, if you're on growth, is your user experience, right? If you don't get that right, there's nothing to promote, right? I mean, the more you promote, right, the more the more hurdles you face, the more complaints that you get, right? So focus on user experience, and then that's only when you have got a good user experience, that then you only start to really focus on promoting. Now, promoting and marketing, right, only comes in when you have got a great product. So the promotion, whether it's going to be what Elon Musk like to say, great product, and that the world knows about it, right? I kind of agree with him halfway, but I certainly also think that why wait for word of mouth when you can also put some steroid to it and use paid advertising or even social marketing, right? So if you combine that too, right, promoting it, that will get you from the hundreds of thousands to millions of adopters, because now you need to accelerate very quickly already. So you need to make sure that you have a very strong marketing team for very social and content driven, right? Because the world now don't just focus on paid advertising, but also a lot got to do with content marketing, and also developing your own social media marketing strategies. So a lot of focus on user experience and also marketing.
Hmm. Yeah, so kind
I
of
hope I answered
product
the
right.
question.
Yep.
Yeah, but you need to get your product right. I mean, if you can't get your product right, I mean, you're still really at beta stage. I mean, beta stage is where a stage where you want to try it out. You want to get people to try it out. You want feedbacks, right? But when you're at growth, right, you have to really put a good team to work on user experience, and then you need to continuously, right, making sure that you have a team that knows how to make it better and better and better, right?
Mhm. Yeah, no, I think that's really good advice for that. I know we've kind of talked at length about kind of very general theories, but let me try to I guess ask one more question because it's about been 30 minutes so far. I guess what are your next plans, like your next couple years, or what are you working on, or what are you most excited about for the coming years?
What I'm excited about is the fact that uh again, let's look at area, right? I'm very excited, especially in the area of automation, and also on AI. I mean, so automation means AI, right?
Mhm.
I'm excited in the area because I I mean, some people would look at it to say that, it's replacing people, it's replacing job. Is I mean, the way I look at it is that when it gets better, then you need lesser people to do the work, or you need lesser, or from my standpoint, it becomes more and more productive, right? So meaning, if there are more robots to take on things that I usually do, for example, then that means that will take away those mundane work from me so that I can do something else. So I always look at it from that perspective. I don't look at it, how would that take away job from me? I mean, great if you can take away job from me. Let's say, the robots can now plan my social media marketing. I don't have to do it. Someone else will do it. I can go and do something else, right? So I'm very positive and also very optimistic of the fact that the world ahead, right, with automation and AI getting better, not just generative AI, like just open, like just Chat GPT, but beyond just Chat GPT, right? Certainly, uh, that would definitely creates and also brings a lot of productivity to people, and to human at large, right? To the society at large, and that allows them, right, to go and do something else, right? And of course, from a Web3 perspective, I can see more adoption, more acceptance in cryptocurrency, and looking forward, right, where you see more and more adoption in the space, and then creating from my standpoint, a more decentralized world where people has more control on the data, more control in what they can access to, right? And at the same time, building, I think, a more lavish financial product, right, that really takes the the autonomy away, right, from the centralized world.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things to kind of grow in both those areas of AI and Web3, and like, the
Yeah, I
development's
mean,
so fast.
we
So
we live in a very exciting time because every sector is growing rapidly. Now, we talked about EV earlier, right? So the car gets, the car gets better, right? More sustainable, and at the same time, it's probably going to be driven by machine, right? So that takes away the mundane work, mundane driving from you, so that you can do something else when you are commuting, right? And that also brings more safety to driving, right? Because machine are more accurate and definitely much safer than human, right? So every sector, and even if you look at B2B manufacturing, right, when you start bringing more automation, right, into manufacturing and supply, into the supply chain, right, things will, they will run more efficiently. So on every sector, that AI is going to be a plaster boy on every one of them, and how that would increase efficiency and productivity. Of course, the flip side is that, the short to mid term, there's going to be a lot of pain on people, because uh, some of the so-called low-skilled people will lose their jobs. So there's going to be an impact to the society, but that's why it's very important that people need to skill up, or either that companies need to help their employees to scale up so that they can start working on something else. Yeah, the short to mid term is going to be painful. So there's a need for people to really, start to scale up. I always use this term that I commonly coin in most of my podcasts and most of my conversation, is that now the only way to stay relevant from my standpoint is the ability it's the ability to do this, yeah, and stay curious, right, and make sure that you know that you learn, you practice learning and unlearning, and also relearning. And so, why do I say the three words: learn, unlearn, and relearn? Now, it's important that you learn something, right? But and because technology is moving so quickly, the world changing so rapidly, that whatever that you learn, that you need to be able to unlearn them. I unlearn does not mean forget. Like, I know what was communication in the past. People use fax machine, people use phone, people use, yeah, I remember, but I've unlearned them already. I don't use those stuff, right? Because, but I'm aware that they were around at one point. Today I learned to use email, I learned to use messaging and so forth, and of course a communication tool like Zoom. So you need to unlearn those things that you used in the past and then relearn. Now, if you do that continuously, right? I think that's a really good way, right, to staying relevant in a very challenging and ever changing society.
Yeah, no, I think that's a
And
really good message.
it sounds simple, but I tell you, 99% of most people cannot do it because a lot of people still stuck in their past. And if you look at most people when they want to refer themselves, I got 25, 30 years of experience. To me, when I look at people with experience, those are legacy. Those are baggages. To me, right? Those are huge baggages. When someone tells you he has got 30 years, that becomes a huge baggage, right? So these years, I don't like to tell people I've got years and years of experience. I always tend to tell them, right, how much more do I know now and forward, and then sharing with you what I've done in my last 30 years. Because sharing with you last 30 years, right, the first thing that comes to my mind, you're still living in the past, right? If you're focusing a lot on your past experience, still focus. And most of the time, if you, and I think you agree with me, is that if you look back, right, anything beyond 3 years, right, it's all useless, really.
Hmm. Yep.
Who does who does those stuff like 3 years ago, right? And these days is that most of the thing that evolve, right, really evolve very rapidly. And I can give you a very good example how rapid is rapid. Look at, I'm sure you're using a smartphone, right, and using app on your smartphone, right?
Hmm.
How often do you update your apps?
Mm, I mean, it's
Almost almost
automatic.
all the
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
right? I don't know how often, but I don't know whether you're aware. Do you know how often your app providers update their apps?
I don't know. No.
Okay, let me share with you. On average, it's between 1 to 2 weeks.
Wow.
What does that tell you? You see,
It's so many changes.
that is so look at the rapid changes that every providers are making. So meaning, what does it mean when you update one a new app? That means that the old app is actually obsolete. That's why you're updating the new one. Of course, you the immediate old one, it doesn't go obsolete. You can still use them, but if you continue to use them up until, let's say, maybe it's half a year, and if you don't update your app, you will get a notification to update, or else you can't use your app. Correct?
Hmm. Yep.
Right. So for me, right, I update my app almost daily. And because I update daily, I can see how rapid are these people been updating. So most of the leading app providers, whether that's going to be WeChat, that's WhatsApp, that's Facebook, that's social and e-commerce, you can see them updating almost every week or every bi-weekly, right? So that shows, right, they are really moving so rapidly, right? And if the app providers are updating so rapidly, and if you're not updating fast enough, you're falling behind.
Hmm.
I'm
Hmm.
I'm just using that as an example, right? So a lot of people, when you look at when you focus on their past, right, it's really, so that's why when I hire, so sometimes when I hire people, I can't, not that I'm discriminative, I can't help myself, but only want to hire very young people,
Hmm.
right? I no longer want to hire someone who has got 10, 15, 20 years experience, because I think if you have 10 years, 15, 20 years experience, you're really behind time already. You cannot move forward, right? You're stuck in the days of Web 2.0 marketing. You're stuck in the days of traditional advertising. I mean, who does traditional advertising this day, right?
Hmm.
That's why I hire very young people. I hire like kids from university, or maybe 1, 2 years work experience. And the reason is because their mind is very fresh, and the everything's I to them or E to them. So it's either I or E. So they know things very well. They know social media. I don't have to explain it. Do you know what social media? Do you know how it works? Do you know who are the influencer? But with someone who has got 10, 15 years, right? They don't know what's happening. And probably they're still using old social media apps. Like, let's say they're still using Facebook, right? People who use Facebook, you can generalize them. They are at least in their 30s and over, 35 and over, and they're old.
Hmm.
The younger generation are on Instagram, TikTok, and so forth, right? So you can really see and tell. You can guess the person age by the app that they're using
Face.
already.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, but in the new era, I'm trying to target young people, so I cannot go and like hire someone who's still using Facebook, right? To go and start marketing to someone who's using Instagram and TikTok. You get what I'm saying? So when I talk to some of these startup, right, when you see the younger startup founders and the slightly older startup founders are very different.
Like the way that
And I
they,
said,
yeah. Hmm.
they're very different. So I always tell them, now, don't forget who you're targeting. Yeah, don't try and like use your thinking, right? and try and generalize for what you think they will think at their age. You are not them. You're still using Facebook, right? So that's why when you find a young people, right, then you know how they are targeting these young. If you're talking even younger, talk to your daughter who's like 15, 16. If they're whatever apps they're using on their phone, and your apps are very different apps,
Yep. Hmm.
right? So always focus on who are your audience, right? And to talk to your audience, find the right people who knows your audience to talk to them, not yourself,
Hmm. I think
right?
that's
So
really good advice.
yeah, you tend to get biased. So you see, I'm considered an old guy, right? But I always, concept of unlearning. And the way I unlearn myself is that I think these are old stuff. I don't want. I think I should put it behind me. And I constantly talk to people younger, because I always ask them, hey, who are the top influencer in this space for this age group? They will tell you, right?
Hmm.
And they themselves understand it a lot better. And you ask them what works, they'll tell you, oh, some of these things works, some of these don't work. And if you believe me, people who are older founders, right, they don't understand this. They
Mm.
probably understand the business well, but they don't know. Now, when you start something, especially in as a startup, marketing is equally as important as a product.
Yep.
You got the best product in the world, and if you don't market it well, you have got no product.
Yep.
You got no user. When you got no user, you got no product. You got no startup, right? So don't underestimate the power of marketing. And of course, for people who are very business centric, don't forget the power of user experience, and also user interface, and also the development. So you need to make sure those are all. So very successful startups, right, are people who are very well grounded overall, not just one area, right?
Mhm.
And these days, when you look at all these startups, right, they are mainly young people, right? And they all use social media marketing, and they themselves are very visible, right? So I always tell a lot of startup founders, I said, if you are not visible on X, on LinkedIn, you got to start doing it right now,
Mm.
right? Having 300 to 500 followers are not going to do you any favor,
Mhm.
right? You should use this social media to promote not just yourself, but also your product. So people who have got like thousands and thousands or 10,000 of followers automatically would have followers who would use his product. You understand what I'm saying,
Yep. Yep. Yep.
right? So be visible. I mean, you may say, "Oh, I'm not on social media," but if you're in startup, you need to do it,
Hmm.
right? I'll give you one good example: Elon Musk,
Hmm.
right? Very visible. If Elon Musk were to create any new product tomorrow, the world will know.
Yes.
I know it's an extreme example, but I'm sharing you with one example, right? Elon Musk is an extrovert. A lot of people didn't know this. He's not an intro. He's an extrovert. But he himself told himself that he needs to communicate better. He needs to share better. He needs to express better, right? That is turning himself from an introvert, right, to extrovert, right?
Hmm.
So that's. I mean, I know it's an extreme example, but that's one example that works very well.
Yeah, no, I think
And
it's
most startup founders don't do that well, really, like 95%.
I think it's really good advice. I know that the time is about to expire, but I think that's a kind of a good end note to get on. Is like, marketing is really, really important, as well as user experience and kind of changing with the times and unlearning and relearning things. So, Alvin, thank you so much for your time. And then we'll be in touch.
Thank you very much to you as well. Nice talking to you, chat. If you have any question, you can always ping me back on DM me. All right.
Okay,
Talk to
okay.
you soon.
Yeah,
Take
thank
care.
you.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.